Next up, I'd like to introduce Valerie Spezzi from LISU at Loughborough University, talking about another study related but showing some different things. So I think that might spark some discussion later on. But over to you, Valerie.
My presentation is not as technical as this one, the one before. So today I'm going to present a project that we've completed just before Christmas and which looked into the impact of library discovery technologies such as web-scale resource discovery services. The project was commissioned by UKSG in collaboration with JISC. The study is a relatively small-scale study, and it is focused on the UK. There are very few usage data analyses available, and this study aims to fill the gap to some extent. There are two other bigger studies, and one is the Denver, Southern California study, and the other one is the Gestor study. So work on this project started in July 2013 with a reporting date in the autumn, so quite a tight deadline. The report was released in December and is now available through the UKSG website. So the focus is on resource discovery services, RDS, and the research had 4 objectives. The first objective was to provide an evaluation of the impact of RDS on the usage of academic resources. This included e-journals, e-books, and databases. The second objective was to provide evidence to determine whether there is a case for libraries to invest in RDS, and a case for publishers and other stakeholders to engage with library discovery technologies. The third objective was to provide recommendations for stakeholders in the information supply chain to best support the discovery of academic resources. And finally, the fourth objective was to identify additional research data initiatives needed to do this. So I'm going to present very briefly the methodology for this project. We don't have much time, so I'm going to go very quickly over that. We first conducted a survey of UK higher education libraries, and the objective of this questionnaire was to determine the current RDS landscape in the UK. The survey was distributed to library directors, and 62 institutions completed the survey. We then conducted a series of case studies with libraries and publishers, and participating publishers and libraries were required to provide some monthly aggregated usage data. And this was counter reports, GR1, BR2, DB1. GR1 for e-journals, BR2 for e-books, and DB1 for databases, or close equivalent. And it was a 2-year pre-implementation, RDS implementation, and 2-year post-RDS implementation. We also talked to individual library and publishers to collect their views and perceptions of the impact of library discovery technologies on the usage of academic content. And we had a good mix of publishers, ranging from the very small and specialist publishers to the very big publishers. We then conducted a series of interviews with stakeholders, and this was to get the big picture. So the findings. Here is how I'm going to present the findings. First, I'm going to present the UK RDS landscape very, very quickly, and this was based on the survey findings. Then I'm going to move on to the libraries and present the findings based both on the survey and the case studies. And then moving on to the publisher findings, and this is based on the case studies. I'm not going to present the details of the usage analysis here, but just the trends. If you are interested in seeing the detailed graphs, I really invite you to take a look at the report. So RDS landscape. RDS is becoming a major element of the academic library landscape, with 77% of survey respondents having already implemented an RDS at their institution, and a further 11% in the process of doing so at the time of the survey, which was back in the summer 2013. What the graph shows as well is that early adopters of RDS implemented it back in 2007-2008, and the survey findings suggest that RDS implementation in UK higher education libraries has probably reached its peak in the last 12 months. There were as many implementations done in the last academic year as in the last 3 years. And the market is mainly covered by 3 products, EDS, Premo, and Summon, together accounting for 76% of systems in use. Moving on to libraries. So the participating libraries reported very high levels of satisfaction with their RDS, and their satisfaction was really down to the one-stop shop experience they were now able to offer. Now users could search across almost all resources from a single entry point, from a single interface linked to full text. Library wants to offer their users a Google-like experience because this is what they want and this is what they are familiar with. And this seems to be working. The participating libraries reported that user feedback is generally very positive. Undergraduate students are seen as the primary users and beneficiaries of library discovery technologies. They are the target population. From the usage study, what we can say is that there is no straightforward answer, but it appears that overall, RDS may influence positively content usage, and most visibly for ebooks. The impact varies by resource and across all libraries. Libraries' perceptions of increased usage following RDS implementation is actually borne out by the data, the usage data. Ebook usage appears to have accelerated after RDS implementation, while e-journal usage has increased just a little and in some cases has decreased. Database results were inconclusive. So isolating the sole impact of RDS is a challenge. There is a lot of noise in the results. And because it is a multidimensional environment, many other factors can affect usage. Link resolvers, the options libraries select in the RDS settings, an increase in the volume of subscription, a growing appetite for electronic content such as ebooks. So in our study, we have tried to control for content growth by providing a usage analysis based on constant titles. But more data is needed for a meaningful analysis. 2 years post-implementation is just not enough to pick up a trend and to isolate other variables affecting usage. So I've talked about high levels of satisfaction, but there are also some challenges. Libraries are unable to see how well their resources match the RDS index, although they believe it's 50% or more. There were some concerns about vendor rivalries and the lack of cooperation between some content owner and some RDS suppliers. And this was seen unhelpful by libraries. Interoperability between library systems, different library systems from different vendors, was also a concern because the systems were not talking to each other adequately. So libraries were happy to move to a single suite of products from a same vendor, risking to be tied up in a particular ecosystem. Now, looking at publishers, what we can say is that visibility and discoverability of content is a key motivation for publishers and content providers to engage with library discovery technologies. But in terms of usage, it's a very, very mixed picture for publishers and content providers. They don't always, they have no clear evidence of the impact of RDS on the usage of their content. They don't always know whether it has been affected, usage has been affected by RDS. And publishers and content providers cannot always tell from their analytics whether traffic to their site is mediated via an RDS. So there is also an indication that small publishers may benefit more from RDS than bigger publishers. So publishers are engaging, but they also have some reservations. And those reservations are reported here. Some publishers had to work on their metadata to optimize discoverability of their content in the RDS. Some publishers insisted on the dilution of the publisher brand within the RDS environment. And publishers have concerns also that they are not being necessarily well served by RDS providers who are primarily concerned with their library customers. And some publishers were also concerned about the lack of clarity on how their data is used by the RDS. And this touches upon the relevancy ranking, how it works. So, conclusions. From what I've presented, we've come up with 3 simple high-level conclusions. There is a lot of data out there, but it is imperfect. There is a lot of noise in the data, which makes it difficult to isolate the sole effect of RDS on content usage. And RDS are fantastic resource discovery tool for library end users. But it's still early days, and a lot more could be done to take full advantage of this technology. And engagement and collaboration between the different groups involved is key to success. So based on the findings I've just presented, we've made recommendations for 4 groups: libraries, RDS suppliers, publishers and content providers, and other stakeholders in the information supply chain. And those recommendations revolve around 2 main ideas: transparency and clarity, and working relationships and communication. I don't think any of the recommendations I'm going to present are particularly controversial, but some of you may see things differently, and that's okay, we can talk about it. So libraries. We believe the library community should work with bodies such as Kernel, AL UK, UKSG, JISC to consider ways of empowering libraries to drive service development within the RDS community, and strengthening the library voice to make sure that RDS suppliers and content providers are providing end users with the best information discovery experience, and that issues such as transparency, neutrality, relevancy ranking are dealt with in a way that is acceptable to the library community. We also believe that libraries should work closely with RDS suppliers and publishers and content providers to gain a better mutual understanding of how minor changes within the RDS environment settings can affect directly the usage of certain resources. Now, looking at RDS suppliers, we recommend an open communication with libraries and with publishers and content providers on how the RDS system works and how publisher content is surfaced. We believe that having in place some user testing for publishers would be helpful, and providing clearer information on what is indexed by the RDS and supporting the development of working relationships between competing RDS vendors with close link with the publishing sector would be beneficial to the library as a whole, but also ultimately to the end users. We've got more recommendations, but I had to make a selection, so I invite you to have a look at the report. Now, looking at publishers, we recommend publishers and content providers to engage and work more closely again with libraries and RDS suppliers to make sure that content is surfaced properly. And this would be also an opportunity for publishers and content providers to open up and build up communication channels with RDS suppliers. We recommend UKSG and JISC to follow closely the development of the developments led by Counter4, and this may help with the collection and reliability of database usage statistics, which really proved challenging for us in our study. We recommend the inclusion of usage data from RDS suppliers and link resolvers in initiatives such as JUSP, but also the development of a counter code of practice for RDS usage data. And international bodies such as NISO, ODI, Counter should consider working together to establish industry standards and encourage RDS suppliers to take notice of those developments. Finally, we believe there is a need for further detailed usage and research. So this is a lot to take in, and for a more detailed reading of the findings, I really invite you to take a look at the report that is available on the UKSG website. It provides a detailed information to support the recommendations I've just presented. Thank you.